those peer influencers is clear. Feminism, its historical achievements, and those on the left who represent them.
I blame feminists for almost every ill that we have right now.
There are many women who feel completely disillusioned and betrayed by the Democrat Party, by liberalism, by radical feminism. And then this mentality, this kind of eroding of traditional masculinity and trying to feminize men to a point where men are going through this kind of backlash process because they feel like they have been oppressed and suppressed by feminists who have tried to brainwash American women into thinking that they don't need men.
Robots that treat them like crap. And these types of attitudes have led to an entire generation of women who spent their 20s focused on their careers and rejecting men.
What they essentially mean is that sure, this stuff might make you more free, going to the office every day, earning money, not needing to rely on your man for a house, for safety, that might make you more free. Being able to choose when you have a baby, or if you have a baby, that might make you more free. But it's not making you more happy. It's explicitly responsible for your lack of happiness.
In the 70s, women were given all sorts of lives. Things that we were told were going to improve our lives, make them better. But are we happier?
They turn the argument back on its head, essentially. They say, was this really the right sacrifice to make?
While it's true that many women are burnt out, 55% compared to 42% of men, according to an American Medical Association survey, and they're having fewer children, the problem isn't feminism per se. Rather, it's things like the disproportionate burden of unpaid labor women face, or the structural gender inequalities in the workplace. And the antidote to these issues is not selling nostalgia as empowerment.
Instead of focusing on the solution that governments and society should support young people in trying to find employment, buying a house, and starting their lives, we're seeing the right instead offer this alternative vision of focusing on building families and sort of retreating into traditional gender roles where women are the homemakers instead of participating in public and civic life.
I think this demonstrates how, for progressives, there needs to be a more concrete and confident argument in favour of women's rights. It's not enough simply to say, well, look how terrible things were back then. That's just increasingly not effective as an argument. This is important for people to remember that simply because we're saying we don't want to go back to the past, it doesn't mean we're saying everything right now as it stands is perfect.
And finally, a Washington Post investigation has revealed how the Israeli government used YouTube ads to rewrite the narrative of Gaza's famine, and how YouTube's owners at Google were more than okay with that.
This is real footage of Gaza food markets, July to August 2025.
The Post looked into videos like this one, put on YouTube by the Israelis of a market in Gaza where the food looked plentiful. It found that the video was shot just after the Israelis had allowed supplies into the strip after months of restrictions, and the products were sold at prices most Palestinians simply could not afford. An internal Google email obtained by the Post shows that the company decided the ads did not violate its policies and went further. Staff were told that any future Israeli videos making similar claims about food or famine in Gaza would not violate Google's rules over safety and trust. The message is clear. Google's rules, which can be
Hello,
quite
Mr.
restrictive,
Bry.
did not apply to Israeli misinformation.
Nice to meet
They say
you.
the truth is the first casualty of war, and the people behind YouTube and Google have been accomplices, willing ones, in Gaza.
Yeah. Is it dark?
A meeting of minds.
Truth is a battlefield, and I believe that images have part in that battlefield, and I believe that the interpretation of images are also themselves part of that kind of war.
Architect E.L. Weisman and photographer Trevor Paglin. Part 2.
Every photograph is a photograph of environmental change. When you're making images at the kind of edge of what's possible, that becomes very pronounced.
Studio B Unscripted on Al Jazeera.
Hello. How are you?
Mara nyingi nikitafakari
Thank you for being here, my friend.
jinsi Wajerumani walivyokuwa, ikafika ile hatua ya kuwakatili wa Afrika kiasi kile, wakati mwingine napata na hasira kwamba au kwa sababu wao walikuwa na nguvu ya kivita, majeshi, bunduki, mizinga, hatukuwa na uwezo, au kwa sababu sisi tuna ngozi nyeusi, wao wana ngozi nyeupe, pengine wana nywele ndefu, sisi tuna nywele fupi, ndio wakaamua wakatuona sisi kama sio binadamu.
Yeah, I'm packing my things for gym and going out.
Na hata wakati mwingine huwa inaleta shida kwamba
Yeah, we'll go to German lesson, you know. I'm planning to apply there.
Israel says it's resuming the Gaza ceasefire after killing more than 40 Palestinians in a wave of attacks. Hello, I'm Sarah Khair. Thank you very much for joining us. This is Al Jazeera Live from Doha. Coming up on the programme, a cargo plane skids off the runway into the sea in Hong Kong, killing at least 2 people. Centrist candidate Rodrigo Paz wins Bolivia's presidential runoff, marking the end of nearly 2 decades of socialist rule. And a manhunt is underway in France after a brazen daylight robbery at the Louvre Museum, where thieves stole priceless crown jewels. Israel says it's returning to the ceasefire in Gaza after carrying out a wave of airstrikes across the Strip. More than 40 Palestinians, including a media worker and children, were killed. Israel says it was responding to the killing of 2 of its soldiers in Rafah by Hamas. Hamas, on the other hand, says it's not involved and that the group hasn't been in control of the south of the Strip since March. Ali Hashim reports.
After days of uneasy calm, a moment Palestinians feared the most. The Israeli military launching a massive wave of strikes after 2 of its troops were killed in Rafah. The Israeli response not limited to the south, with dozens of Palestinians killed across the Strip, including several inside a UN-run school in Cebu. Hospitals in Deir al-Balah once again
Yeah,
nothing short of
kind
fear
of very
and
busy
menace,
right now.
calling the situation catastrophic.
We were sitting here, safe and sound. The place is closed off, no strangers were entering. Then the bombing happened next to us. Our colleague, the broadcast engineer, was mauled, and so was his young son.
Israel says the strikes were retaliation for violations of the ceasefire. An army spokesman published a map warning Palestinians to stay west of the so-called yellow line, the boundary defining Israeli positions under the Trump-brokered truce. Hamas denies its fighters were involved in the fighting at Rafah and accuses Israel of using flimsy pretexts to resume the war. Inside Israel, far-right ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich are urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to return to full
Yeah, I got business attire, but then I have to use, you know, sneakers because I need to learn driving.
Very aggressive movements from Israel against the threat of Hamas non-disarmament. And it appears as if
It's kind of late for me because, you know, I'm from the poor family, right? So we don't have car growing up. It's not like you guys, like when you when you were like 13 years old, or yeah, you had basic,
However,
you know.
Israel later said it was returning to the ceasefire and aid supplies would resume on Monday. Ali Hashim, Al Jazeera.
Well, let's go to Tariq Abazum, our correspondent, who's live for us in Deir al-Balah, that's in central Gaza. Good morning to you, Tariq. Now, how are people feeling this morning? Are there fears of any more violations expected to potentially happen?
Good morning, Sarah. It was a very difficult day for many Palestinians when they started to see tension spiraling between Hamas and Israel regarding what happened in Rafah yesterday. But following the obvious American pressure and the intervention of mediators to contain the apparent tension, they started to get some sense of relief again on the ground. People started to feel a bit comfortable about the possibility that the ceasefire might continue after the mounting doubts yesterday about the fragility of the deal, given the tension, the scale of airstrikes that was quite recorded and documented over the past 24 hours, and how Israel responded with the huge force on the ground to what took place in Rafah regarding the clashes that took place between militias and Hamas fighters. Now, with both sides trying to contain the crisis and even to keep that going within the rule of engagement, people on the ground believe that the situation will get better within the coming days as long as mediators will continue to exert more pressure on both sides to push them to commit and adhere to the terms of the agreement. And that was, by the way, quite obvious once Israel has started to allow for more aid to access into Gaza after its decision to halt humanitarian aid entry to the Strip. That has been seen as a key change that took place despite the growing call by hard-wing extremist figures in the current Israeli Prime Minister's government about their calls for the continuation of war and to deliver huge response regarding the violations Israel described Hamas has been doing over the past week. So what has been so apparent also is the exchange of violations, commitments, also from both sides. Hamas said that Israel committed at least 47 violations from the beginning of this.
Hello, my three friends. How are you? From where are you? Please connect. Please do like, share, and subscribe.
I'm talking to you right now, Sarah. I can hear the sound of Israeli drones and operating very close. Yeah, very close to Kusifim military checkpoints where aid trucks at the moment are still waiting to get a permission to bring more food and humanitarian supplies for people in need here.
Okay, so that surveillance there by Israel continues, and we wait with a bated breath, I'm sure, for many Palestinians as to whether more aid will be coming.
Thank you for being here, my two people.
Right, well, earlier US President Donald Trump, who brokered the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, says the truce in Gaza is still in place.
We're going to have to see what's happening. We want to make sure that it's going to be very peaceful with Hamas. As you know, they've been quite rambunctious. They've been doing some shooting, and we think maybe the leadership isn't involved in that. You know, some rebels within, but either way, it's going to be handled properly. It's going to be handled toughly, but properly.
Is the ceasefire still in place?
Yeah, it's
Right, and here's Shahab Ratansi with a view from Washington, D.C.
This is after Israel's best efforts to derail the ceasefire. We'll have to see whether the U.S. means it, but they will stop Israel from bombing at will. We do have Israeli reports saying the U.S. is telling Israel to stop because it's trying to encourage countries to join a stabilization force. And they say, look, no one's going to join if you're still bombing. We shall see. But we have two narratives now. We have this fog of war narrative of what happened on Sunday in Rafah. Well, we don't really know what happened. Maybe it's some rogue Hamas unit. And then we have the leaks from the
Hello, friends.
two organizations here in the U.S. On the left,
Yeah.
the American Conservative, will have briefings.
Well, just chat me here. What are the things that you like to talk about?
There was no Hamas.
If you like to talk about sex, then we are here still.
An Israeli bulldozer around
I can talk sex with you.
unexploded ordnance. And so we told Israel when we found out that we knew what had happened, and we told them to go back to the ceasefire. Essentially, Israel is not in charge anymore of what's happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
We
You know what,
so
last
we
night,
have those narratives. We'll see whether they
I was
stick.
with my
And which ones will
family,
stick, right?
and yeah,
Islanders in Gaza are charging
they are here in my
exorbitant rates
condo.
after Israel's war forced banks to shut down operations, but some are slowly reopening after the ceasefire took effect.
We cook
And
food
there are
here.
hopes of some respite for cash-starved Palestinians. Ibrahim Khalil has this report from Deir al-Balah.
Gaza's markets are slowly springing back to life. After nearly 2 years of paralysis and scarcity, in their Balah Central Market, crowds return, goods fill the stalls, but accessing money to pay for those goods is a struggle. High commission rates on cash withdrawals have been a major burden on Palestinians during the war. With the stability slowly returning, authorities are beginning to regulate these rates.
We started seeing all kinds of food to buy, but the commission is still high. It's true that it's dropped from 45% to 20%, but that still makes a lot of things unaffordable for many people.
After months of having nothing to sell, market sellers are relieved to be trading again. But it's still far from normal.
We wish the world would pressure Israel to allow cash flow into Gaza. That's the real solution to the problem.
Authorities in Gaza say they're trying to restore fairness by regulating food prices as well as cracking down on high cash withdrawal rates.
We work to regulate the prices in markets, as well as the high commission charges. Almost 2,500 missions have been accomplished since the ceasefire.
As life cautiously resumes, the reopening of banks is expected to inject cash in a longer way.
Oh, I'm very good. Thank you, my friend. Yes, I love you. I love people chatting me, right? Because it makes me talk. I sorry, happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. What do you want me to do to make you happy? No one shows me how to.
The cargo plane has skidded off the runway and into the sea.
Where are you?
At Hong Kong's international airport. The Boeing 747 fighter arriving from
Where are you now, my friend?
vehicle, killing 2 people inside. The 4 crew members on board the plane were rescued. Some cargo flights were cancelled, but airport authorities say passenger services
Sure,
haven't been
I can do that
affected.
for you.
Now, Penny Stanton is a pilot and director of strategic air and aviation safety consultancy firm, and he explains what investigators will be looking for.
We understand at the moment there was no
Like this.
call or hand call, so this was something that obviously happened very quickly and
Wow,
unexpectedly.
like
So
that.
by now, investigators would have already spoken to the crew at length. We know the 4 crew members survived, so I suspect investigators really have a good insight to what took place. So there's the interviews with the crew members, and then of course there is the downloading of data from the aircraft itself, like everyone's heard of the black box. So all of the data in terms of speed, flight path, what the aircraft was doing and when, will be available to investigators with the black box. I think we need to be careful not to speculate at this very early stage.
Nah, I made it. I already did it for you.
We'll undertake a very thorough investigation. We'll produce a preliminary report very quickly.
Sorry.
In the next 30 days. And a more comprehensive report, potentially up to a year later.
From where are you?
If we ask ourselves what are the likely lines of inquiry that the investigators will undertake, which might give us some insight to the potential causes. Those lines
From where are you, my friend?
like, mechanical functions of the aircraft, so the wheel brakes or the speed brakes on the wings. There would be a line of inquiry around the runway and any contamination on the runway. The flight path and the energy state of the aircraft, in other words, where did it touch down on the runway and at what speed. Human factors, as there are in all aviation
voters of Bolivia have chosen a centrist senator as their new president, ending nearly 2 decades of socialist rule. Rodrigo Paz secured more than 54% of the vote, around 10 points clear of his right-wing rival Jorge Quiroga. Paz is promising economic reforms to tackle soaring inflation and government debt, while also maintaining social spending.
Even though it might seem at first that some lose and others
Now I
win,
feel hungry.
today Bolivia has won.
Thank
We
you.
repeated tirelessly that if the people of Bolivia did not choose us, we would extend a hand to whoever won. And today, from victory, we extend a hand to govern for all the men and women who serve the nation.
Alessandra Ampieti has more from the Paz on what the president-elect has been saying.
Supporters of President-elect Rodrigo Paz are celebrating, as you can see here behind.
No, I already did it.
Downtown La Paz, for what promises to be a major new chapter in Bolivian politics. We just heard from the president-elect who said he is promising to try and end.
And in fact, I think you are kidding me, right?
Economic and social turmoil.
You know, some sexual people, they're not like, you know, they just make the host crazy. But no, I do it once and that's all.
Social programs that exist for the poor that have been implemented in the 20 years in power of the movement towards socialism. But it also means a major shift in foreign policy, and we heard Paz talking about it in his speech. He said he has already been congratulated by the U.S. government, and he said that he wants to reestablish good relationships with the U.S. and that he feels that he needs that
I don't get you. I will block you.
He needs to jumpstart the economy here. And also move away from what have been the alliances throughout the 20 years in powers of the socialists here, namely with Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran. So what's clear is that this government will bring economic, legislative, and international change to the country. We'll have to see how much of this the president-elect will be able to achieve.
Right, well, still ahead on Al Jazeera, hopes of fighting poverty and crippling shortages in Madagascar after weeks of anti-government protests triggered a military coup.
Alright, bye-bye. So, this is what I wear today. Yeah. Got blue shoes. Black shoes.
Justice and a shift of blame from the many victims to the perpetrators of horrific crimes across France. Witness presents No More Shame on Al Jazeera.
Examining the headlines. Unflinching journalism. Sharing personal stories.
So yeah, thank you for watching me. And please do like, share, and subscribe, okay?
On Al Jazeera. Discover a world of difference. Stories of
Yeah, bye-bye now.